We are live. We are live. Welcome to college football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, if you need a little bit of extra college football content to get you through the days, to get you through the nights, subscribe to our channel. You'll get notified when we pop up next. Share this video with your family and friends and smash that like button if you like our content. Welcome into the house that sits on the corner, so it helps us to peek around the corner. That sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kirk Gowdy Avenue. Come on in. Don't be shy. The show is stacked. We already did episode 167 this morning. We did an emergency episode 168 this morning. Now we're doing an emergency live show because the Arizona president spoke and he proved once and for all there was no plot and no lies were told. No lies were told except by the people who said there was a plot by Endeavor and that the reporters were lying. Welcome in to College Football's Peek Around the Corner. First, we have to talk about our sponsor. We are so fortunate to have this great sponsor, Blue Ridge Coffee Crafters Difference. Clean, hot air, roasted coffee produces a smoother, richer, healthier coffee that is less bitter and less acidic. Our hot air roasted coffee uses convection heat to loft the beans for a very even heat transfer. The clean, bright taste that people rave about is achieved by roasting the bean quickly and evenly while suspended on a bed of hot air from craft to cup. Hand-picked coffee beans, the smoothest coffee the wife and I have ever had. The little general absolutely loves this coffee. So please give it a try. There's a link in the description box. If you do order a bag of beans, and if you do want to support this channel, put in PATC in the comments section on the website. Thank you so very much for all your support. Thank you, Blue Ridge Crafters, for being our sponsor on this live show and on every single live show. We also have to talk about the Cloak and Dagger. Drink responsibly in the chat room. We're at noon. It's a noontime lunch. Drink whenever Greg says Cloak and Dagger. It only counts when Greg says it. Have fun and drink responsibly. And again, we do have a new merchandise store. That's link is also in the description box. Go get your official PATC coffee mug and your hoodie, 7 different colors, and a trucker hat. Okay. All right, so here we go. Okay. First of all, I want to thank everyone that's come into the chat room. Again, we popped in. It was an emergency live show. Joe, Zay, Jay Pumutter, Tu Master, K-Do, Larry Weiss, Randy Taylor, James Foster, Cameron B. Thank you for all coming in early this morning, and everybody else. So we did an episode this morning. Check it out. 167, I believe. Arizona State president comes out and says, we are committed to the Pac-12. We've been saying here at Peek Around the Corner for months, since January 31st, when our own Arizona State Money Perch spoke to us, and he's given us 6 different letters. We've given you all the information. Arizona wasn't going to move until Arizona moved. Arizona wasn't going to move unless Arizona moved first. And now you've been hearing other reports out there that Colorado's the wild card, that Arizona has been the most receptive school. Well, Arizona president spoke. Mercury News, per John Wilner. We're going to be going through, it just released. We're going to be going through that article. But let me say something. Medea Flugar, she's drinking water. So drink responsibly, whether it's water, coffee, tea, okay? Your Diet Cola or your tequila, whatever. Drink responsibly. Also, make sure you get our official PATC coffee mug in the link in the description box. Arizona president spoke. We're going to be going through it. And my goodness. It's all about the deal. It's all about what media deal that they haven't been presented yet, right? And again, we at Peek Around the Corner have been telling you for weeks when other people were reporting deals of 25 million, 28 million, this and that. We've been telling you all there has been no comprehensive deal presented in front of the Pac-12 presidents. They're about to get it. We're in the late stages. They're about to get it. The University of Arizona president said, and we're going to be going through the article, he said the deal has to be competitive for the conference to stay together. So that's exactly what we've been saying. And other people have been saying, by the way. There has been no lies told by CBS, by 247 Sports, by Brett McMurphy Action Network, by SBJ's Business Sports Journal, by 365 Sports, by Kurtz, by Shear. None of them. They've all given you the straight shoot. So have we at Peek Around the Corner. Yes, these Pac-12 schools want to stay together. We all know that. Well, who are you? We all know that. They want to stay with their peers. But the question is, was there a possibility for one or more to leave if the deal wasn't good enough? And Arizona president just admitted out in public, yeah, that's the truth. They need a competitive deal for the conference to stay together. So all this talk about a plot, about reporters lying just to put out what Endeavor wants, this idea that these schools are going to stay together no matter what. No matter what. Now that's the lie. That always was the lie. I don't care how many diplomas you have on the wall. You cannot besmirch reporters all across this country who are putting out real information from their source to say there's no possibility any school could leave. There were no lies told. Okay. You guys know how this works. I'm going to be going through the article. I'm going to give you my thoughts in this article. This show is not going to be for the faint of heart. Okay? I'm going to be going through the article here. Arizona president spoke. I know a lot of you haven't seen it yet. Then we're going to be getting to your comments and to your phone calls. The line is not open. The phone number is 763-260-1333. Let's get right to it. Pac-12 media rights. Arizona President Robert Robbins says competitive deal necessary for schools to stick together. Do I need to repeat that? Competitive deal necessary for schools to stick together. Pac-12 competing for bronze medal with the Big Ten, SEC so far out in front. Again, Dennis Dodd does not need me to none of these guys need me to say this, okay? But what they have written has been the truth. From the information that's been given, the source has been given them, as well as us here at Peek Around the Corner. It's about the deal, and there's nervousness around the deal. Is the deal going to come in competitive enough for the Pac-12 schools to stay together? Yes, it could. And no one has said anything differently. But those who are saying that there was no chance, no matter what, that any school could look to go to the Big 12, well, the Arizona president just put a dagger into your made-up conspiracy and your plot. Arizona President Robert Robbins called the departures of UCLA and USC clearly huge losses, but said the remaining Pac-12 schools are rallying and joining arms to make it work as the conference navigates an uncertain landscape. Central to the process of making it work is the completion of a media rights agreement for the contract cycle that begins in the summer of 2024. Negotiations began last July and should be resolved soon, Robbins told the hotline during an interview Tuesday. Asked about the speculation over the future of the conference, Robbins rejected the notion that schools, including Arizona, would bolt for the Big 12 prior to being presented with a media rights proposal. Okay. That's true. Robbins rejects the notion that schools, including Arizona, would vote for the Big 12 prior to being presented with a media rights proposal. There's one problem with that. No respected journalist, not a Peek Around the Corner, nobody with a half a brain cell has come out and said that or Arizona or anyone else would vote before they get the media rights proposal. Right? Like we've said here at Peek Around the Corner, they haven't been given the proposal yet. And they're about to. So yes, Robbins rejects the notion that any school is ready to bolt from the Big 12 prior to being presented with the media rights proposal. And every single person who have talked about this issue has said the same thing, agrees with Robbins. So there's really no news there. We continue. It's heavily dependent on Commissioner George Kliavkoff and his team negotiating a good media deal for us to stay competitive. It's dependent on this media deal. And we would say not just the financial part, but the visibility part. It's heavily dependent. I don't think anybody wants to leave. Why would you move for a couple $1 million a year more? Exactly correct. Nobody wants to leave. Nobody wants to leave their peers, and it's not going to be just for over a couple $1 million a year. Absolutely correct. And I don't think anyone has said anything different. Then he compared the situation for competing for a bronze medal. The Big Ten media rights contracts with Fox and CBS and NBC signed in August would distribute roughly $67 million per year to each campus. The SEC's all-in deal with ESPN is expected to spin off at least $60 million per school once Texas and Oklahoma come aboard in 2024. Meanwhile, the Big 12 and the Pac-12 are in the third tier along with the ACC. The Big 12 agreed in October to a renewal of its contracts with ESPN and Fox that will reportedly distribute $31.66 million annually. This is Robbins speaking. I would love to be closer to the Big 10 or the SEC, but being closer to the Big 12 is more realistic. To be close, to be a couple $1 million away. Kliavkoff has done a great job working on the media deal, and I think he'll bring us something that's good enough. That's good enough to keep the conference together. So again, the conference is on the knife's edge. It's all about the media deal. The ties that bind the schools together in the Pac-12. It is great. It is big. It is important. But it's not everything. Especially when we're going into this new world of college football and college sports. Robbins is saying he believes, he thinks that whatever is presented in front of them will be good enough to keep the conference together. But it has to be good enough. It has to be competitive enough to the Big 12. And what he isn't saying here, and what I will say to you all, it really is about the visibility. That is what, if the visibility is good enough in this deal, if there's enough content being put on ESPN, if there's enough content put on linear, then the conference can stay together. The entire deal, if it's good enough, yes. If the deal isn't good enough, then no, the conference isn't staying together. So again, those who've been saying that there's been some line going on among the press, from CBS Sports to Athletic, from SBJ to 247 Sports, and that really got me riled up because I know people at 247 Sports. I got my start. The great Ryan Burns in Minnesota let me break news on his site, and other 247 Sports people that I've gotten close to. You cannot put a whole large net across a whole bunch of people's credibility, integrity, and say that everyone's lying because they're saying there's a chance that maybe the deal isn't good enough, so therefore school could leave the Pac-12, the Big 12. You cannot go out in front and besmirch everybody and not hear from Greg Pfluger peek around the corner. That ain't happening. Twice during a 10-minute conversation, Robbins made a reference to the Pac-12 as the Conference of Champions. But he painted a nuanced picture of Arizona. Oh my goodness, nuance. I'm glad that he did, because this is nuance. Citing the school's proximity to the Big 12 footprint and that league's powerhouse basketball brand as a basis for some affinities. He also addressed the academic piece. Arizona is a member of the Association of American Universities, as is every school in the Pac-12 except for Arizona State, Washington State, and Oregon State. Kansas will be the only AAU school in the Big 12 once Texas departs. That's important to us in terms of research, says Robbins. Asked about discussions between Arizona and the Big 12, Robbins didn't answer directly, but he says he has friends in the conference and was in favor of adding the remaining Big 12 schools after Texas and Oklahoma announced they were joining the SEC in the summer of 2021. So Robbins, now this is a different point of view here between Robbins and Michael Crow, the president of Arizona State. Robbins was in favor of trying to expand with some of these Big 12 schools. Crow wasn't. Very important difference. So here you got Robbins saying there's some affinity. He understands the value of the Big 12 basketball brand. He's been talking to the Big 12. Of course he has. Of course he has. And he continues to talk. So Dennis Dodd was correct. Brett McMurphy was correct. 365 Sports was correct. On and on and on, they were correct. They were not lying. They were not part of some stupid Endeavor plot. I personally like the idea of forming the Pac-20 or the Big Pac, whatever you want to call it, he said. I thought it would have been really cool, but it got very complicated. Ultimately, Robbins framed the future of the Pac-12 as a business decision, with the onus on Kliavkoff to craft a competitive media rights deal. Can everybody hear me, including the ones sitting in the back of the room who believed in this stupid Endeavor plot that people try to make this argument on Twitter? I'm going to repeat that again. Ultimately, Robbins, the president of Arizona, a Pac-12 school. Okay, so this isn't Greg Flugart talking. This isn't Dennis Dodd talking. This isn't anybody from 247 talking. This is the actual president of the Pac-12 talking. Ultimately, Robbins framed the future of the Pac-12 as a business decision, with the onus on Kliavkoff to craft a competitive media rights deal. We're all committed, he said. I'm pretty confident George will bring us a deal that we're happy with and preserves the Pac-12 to make the next step together, or with 12 schools if we add anybody. Wow. Arizona president. Just put a dagger into the thoughts that there was never any chance, no possibility, that it was all made up, that sources weren't really talking to any of these reporters and to us and anybody else, that there's been a possibility of poaching. Okay, so that's been laid to rest. So all that talk has been absolutely nonsense. I understand the rivalry between the Pac-12 and the Big 12, the elbows that are being thrown throughout the fan bases. I get it. A lot of it's fun, good nature. It's going to continue to go on, just like between all the conference and the universities and the fan bases within each conference. But when you go out and you make it your mission to besmirch and go after all these reporters who are putting in work, who have sources telling them, yes, schools are communicating with the Big 12. These are the reasons why. All varying degrees of communication. Those reporters were telling the truth. And the people on Twitter who were telling you all that it was just one big Endeavor plot, they weren't telling you the truth. Okay? All right, let's get to your comments. First, we'll get to your phone calls. There was a lot there. The deal has to be competitive. Has to be competitive to keep the conference together. And Robbins is optimistic. We also can go through this article later on in our live show that the NFL and the Big 12 have created a partnership. Holy smokes. A one-time Frisco, Texas, Dallas Cowboys training facility in Frisco, Texas, starting next year, where you're going to have all the student athletes who are looking to be drafted in the NFL doing a combine, all in one combine, all the student athlete, the football players from all the Big 12 schools in one place, one location, one date in front of all the NFL teams. And this is going to be on the NFL Network. It's going to be advertised and promoted and marketed by the NFL and all of its platforms. Brett Yarmark, Mr. Big 12, Mr. Exposure, just struck a huge deal. Okay, let's get to your comments. Jose, the truth must be told, and we just told it once again. Jay, thanks for coming in. Good morning, everybody. Smash that like button. Tu Masta, oh Nelly. K-Do, we are lunching, Spork and Dagger. Spork and Dagger. Laura Reese, money-wise, it could be competitive, but what about the exposure? What about the production cost, diluting the money? Again, we're going to see it, Laura. We'll see when the deal is presented. And when this happens, of course, we're going to go live, right? But I'm going to caution everybody. We're going to have to open up the hood. We're going to have to look into this. First blush, the numbers may not be what all that it seems. But we'll take a look at it. The financial, the exposure part, is it going to be good enough? Is it going to be good enough to hold the conference together? It might be. It might get the conference 4 or 5 years more down the road. And then, of course, you got the whole Oregon and Washington Big Ten situation percolating. But yes, is this deal good enough to keep it going? We're going to find out. But the deal has to be good enough. And the Arizona president just said it. Just said it in public. So there's no more debate about this. Right? It's on the knife's edge. It might survive. But no more questioning that it could not have happened. If it doesn't happen. Randy Taylor, we are live. Thanks for the live show. Thanks for all you coming in. Mandel said this morning that Gonzaga to the Big 12 in all sports is inevitable. Thank you, Juan Carlos. Give me a link to that statement. I haven't seen that yet. We've been saying Gonzaga to the Big 12 for a while. We thought it was going to happen at the end of January because we thought this Pac-12 deal would be done in November. But then the whole UCLA in front of the University of California Board of Regents happened, and it just pushed off everything. Gonzaga to the Big 12, yeah. This is what Brett Yormark wants to do. Yormark is killing it, delivering the NFL to its schools. It's an unbelievable deal. And I'm wondering if other Power 5 conferences can get something going with the NFL in regards to this as well. A different date. But Yormark was the first one to strike. He's always selling, and then he closes, right? Cameron Breen, I think it's possible that schools still move. I'd give it 50-50 chances. It all depends on the details of the deal, the money and the exposure. If it's only one game on ESPN, then Apple and Amazon, it's danger. Absolutely correct. It's all about the deal. It's all about the deal. And it might be good enough. There's some optimistic there, Robin said, right? It's all about the deal. I think the whole idea that there's not a chance, there was never a chance, it's all lies. Holy smokes, that whole stupid narrative talking points, however that came about, there's a dagger, cloak and dagger, there's a dagger put into that. Those silly talking points, that's gone. That is absolutely gone. And the Arizona president I'm wondering if the people who on Twitter who spread this garbage, I don't think they expected the Arizona president to be so honest, to be so truthful out in public. But he did so that's done away with. Grateful Trojan says combine should go away, not to be increased. Ooh, I don't know about that. In those combines, more exposure for some athletes that did not get the exposure during the season. They show up and they do well. And no, I think combines are here to stay. I love this idea from the Big 12. I love this. I hope the Big 10 gets it done. But you need all the schools to buy in. You need all the schools to buy in to do this, to be really effective. So the Big 10, Ohio State would have to buy in. Michigan would have to buy in. Penn State would have to buy in. SEC, Alabama would have to buy. I'm not sure if that's even possible because they like to have their individual combines at their school. Big 12, they're all aligned. Yormark pitched it, and he got the deal done once again. Wayne Marshall, what about paying back the $50 million? Well, they're going to have to do that. They're going to have to do that. Irregardless of where Arizona ends up, they're still going to have to pay that money back. Patrick Bourne, seems that the Pac media deal being a majority streaming has been accepted by Oregon, Washington, Utah, since they expect that they will not be streamed as much as, say, California, Arizona, Colorado. Very good point. you know, that's a good point. Maybe Oregon and Washington, maybe they'll get some assurances that they won't be streamed as much as the other schools. We shall see. We're not going to know. We're not going to know until that deal's out in public. That's a very good point. That's a possibility, Mr. Boren. Very good point. Ted Adams, let's not forget also 8 of the 12 Pac-12 schools' athletic departments are in the red and have been for several years. Cal Athletic Department just got a bailout of some $132 million from this university. Ted Adams, Pac-12 presidents aren't going to keep paying for athletic departments to exist out of school academic finances. Athletic departments are their own identities and they have to be break even at the worst. Larry Pilgrim, thanks for your super chat. Appreciate it, sir. Pac-12 had 37 games in 2022 on the Pac-12 network, 43 on regular networks. Visibility has always been an issue. No one trying to find Pac-12 before 8 p.m. Eastern. Absolutely true. Absolutely correct. Visibility has always been an issue. Now it very well could be even more of an issue. That's why the visibility component is so important in this new deal. Now the presidents, they don't really say the word visibility, but the athletic directors, it's on their minds, right? When their coaches, their staffs of their sponsors boards are trying to recruit student athletes, the student athletes want to know where their games are going to be played, if people are going to be watching these games. Absolutely true, Larry. Visibility has always been an issue. And the Pac-12 is probably the one conference who couldn't afford to be off linear TV. But it looks like majority of their content will be off linear TV. Is the deal good enough to keep the conference together? Arizona president said that. He's the one who said it. So it's about the deal. It is truly about the deal. The future of the Pac-12 is resting on the knife's edge. Thank you so much for the super chat, Larry. I appreciate your generosity to the channel, helping us keep the lights on. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. The one-legged bald dude. Thanks for coming in. Greg, explain to me why ASU is a target of the Big Ten other than AAU status. They seem to be a big research school and a huge market. I'm a Michigan fan living in Phoenix. Explain to me why Arizona State is not a target. I think that's what you're asking. Simply because there's other targets that have been deemed more valuable to the Big Ten. Right? Arizona State is down on the list. They're not as valuable as the Washington brand, the Washington Great Research University. They're not as valuable as Oregon. There's only so many slots. Maybe Arizona State, years down the road, if the Big Ten fills out to 24, who knows? We'll take it up then. But Arizona State isn't quite there. They have increased their research expenditures. There's no question about it. A lot of Big Ten alumni living in the Phoenix area like you, one-legged bald dude. Kevin Warren was an alumni of Arizona State. There was a connection there. They're just not as valuable, deemed as valuable as Oregon and Washington. And I don't think the Big Ten, if they would expand right now in the next month or so, and of course the timing of that is all very dicey, as we've all know, it's just not going to involve Arizona State. And Arizona State knows that. I mean, the Big Ten won't even, they're not even seriously considered Arizona State hockey program to become the big part of the Big Ten conference. But thanks for the question. Appreciate it. Rick Olson, the recession and banking fiasco is now in play for any media deal. Pac-12 waited too long. Yeah, the market is down. In Arizona, well, everyone's saying it. The market goes, Arizona State president said it this morning. Again, go back to our episode 167 of this morning. He says the markets go up and down, and right now it's down. It's a media market recession that we're in. There was another article this morning. I've done 2 episodes and 1 live show. There's no way I can get to it today. Maybe I'll get to it tomorrow. But I did put it up on my Twitter account at Flug Empire. Check it out. Again, Disney might sell off. ESPN might sell off what they own of Hulu. The market is shrinking. The media market is shrinking. That is why in episode 83 on October 30th, when it was announced that Yormark had struck a deal, peek around the corner said Yormark did the right thing. Pac-12 should have struck. They should not be putting their stuff out on the open market. Of course, we got raked over the coals on it, but it turned out to be true. Yormark got raked heavily over the coals on it, and it turned out that he made the right move. And I think there's a lot of people out there who do not want to admit it now. So they have to double up, triple up on these crazy conspiracies that are not true. Pac-12, it's on the knife's edge. It's on the knife's edge. They need to see the deal. The deal has to be competitive enough to the Big 12 for the conference to hold together, to stick together, according to Arizona's own president. No Bunga, I'm sorry, I always mispronounce your name. I'm sorry, no Bangaga says, Oregon State Legislature just introduced a bill that would require approval from Salem for state schools to change conference affiliations. First hearing, March 28th. Very interesting. Send me that link to that article, to that news report at Flug Empire. I appreciate it. Very, very interesting. Visibility and exposure is the same, yes. Grateful Trojan says, I think Colorado is the most likely to go. Okay, so, right? Big 12 just struck this incredible deal with the NFL. The NFL Network, they're going to have this combine. They're going to showcase their student athletes in football sometime in the spring in Frisco, Texas. Student athletes are going to be attracted to that. They're going to be more attracted to the Big 12 football programs because they know 3, 4, 5 years down the road, there's going to be this huge combine, big event broadcasted by NFL Network, advertised, promoted by the NFL across all platforms. That's very attractive. Do you think Deion Sanders, when he read that article this morning, what do you think he was thinking? What do you think he's saying to Rick George? Do you know how much money they put into Deion Sanders? Something like $5 million a year for a Colorado football program that hasn't won in the last 15 years. Do you know those boosters at Colorado who are trying to put their money into new NIL collectives? They want their student athletes, their football players, that they're putting money forward to get them in the building, to get them in the stadium, to get them on the field. You don't think they want the most exposure for their football players? It all plays into it. All of it plays into it. He pretty much confirmed there have been discussions and deal needs to be good enough. He's right. The next step is close. One way or the other, Jason Scheer. Jason Scheer is absolutely correct. And he's been correct. 365 Sports is correct and has been correct. I can't tell you. I'm kind of disheartened, to be honest with you. All these people. Okay, if you want to disagree with them on the chances of a school leaving to, okay, fine. Argue the merits. No, Arizona's not going unless the deal is, but to go out and just say, oh, these people were lying. And I know they weren't lying because you all know we've been given information from Arizona State's Money Perch, and he's nailed the story all along. And he's been talking to people are talking. They are. It doesn't mean there's going to be a Pac-12 implosion. It means that they all want to see the deal, and if it's not good enough, things will probably happen. It wasn't, and to include Endeavor and to say the name out on Twitter of the lady running the marketing of Endeavor and besmirch her reputation. If I was her, I would be bringing my lawyers in. It's just terrible. And I'm not going to... That's why I got all up on Twitter a couple nights ago. Because it was always true. It's been true for a while. It's been true for a while that the Big 12 conference representatives have been speaking to some of the Pac-12 schools. And it wasn't this case of these in some of these Pac-12 schools, and you kind of know who they are, Arizona, Colorado, for the most part. They're not saying, leave us alone. No. Don't you understand? We mean no. They're not saying that. You know what the University of Arizona president's doing and the athletic director? Do you know what Colorado's doing? They're just making sure that they have a possibility for a safe landing spot if this comprehensive deal that finally gets presented to them isn't good enough. That's what they're doing. And that's what these people in the press have been saying. All different words, all different saying. I saw another cheap shot on Twitter this morning where when that Arizona piece came out, Arizona State President piece, which basically was, he said, we're committed. We all know that Arizona State isn't the first one that was going to jump anyways, that they're committed. They want to stay. Michael Crow, we told you about the history of that he would want to stay in the Pac-12. But when that article came out, there were people on Twitter saying, oh boy, here comes Dennis Dodd's new article to combat this. Dennis Dodd is not in that business. He's not in the propaganda business. He has biasness, but he's not sitting out there. Brett McMurphy's, they're not carrying the water for Endeavor or for the Big 12. They're just saying what they've been told by sources. And guess what? The Arizona president just proved them all to be correct. That's what happened today. Yeah, Dennis Dodd is not selling weapons in this war. Absolutely correct. So you would think you would see some apologies coming out of those people on Twitter. You're not going to see them. Okay. We're going to get to your phone calls right now. We're going to break this thing wide open. Let's hope everything is working. Okay, now I think the phone lines are open. 763-260-1333. Call in, give me your thoughts on anything we've talked about here. The Big 12 getting along, partnership with the NFL, having a pro day. All the schools in one pro day.
Call from
Ryan Thomas.
Ryan Thomas. How you doing, sir? The floor is yours.
Doing good, Greg. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. I am I have to say, I am very, very happy that the Arizona president went out in public and said what he said today, or yesterday. It was released today, because that just put a dagger into all this just really ridiculous talk about everyone was lying. The Arizona president, he's looking for the best deal. And he might get it. Yep, go ahead.
And I would caveat, what's interesting with Michael Crow's comment is I think people are completely ignoring the first clause in his sentence. He said, we're close to knowing where we're going to be. And I think we're close to a deal. Like you said, I mean, the entire time, no one's had a comprehensive package put in front of them. So, I mean, you know, the default position is we're going to stay in the Pac-12 until we know what the big picture is. And that's pretty consistent with what we've known for the past 6 months, right? I mean, so, I mean, you know, I don't think, Wilner and Canzano and others should be careful about dunking on other people because, you know, things aren't going to start to materialize until next week when we actually have an idea of what's going on here. But I thought I'd share some interesting analysis that I did for everybody. And so this is the, accounting lawyer nerd geek coming out for me. But like I mentioned to you, I looked at the Big Ten deal, and you know, when we look at the 15-game package for each NBC and CBS, each paying $350 million, it comes out to, and that's based on average Fox afternoon viewership of about 5.57 million. That works out to be about $4.18 per viewer. And keep in mind, the Big Ten basketball property is a little bit more valuable than the Pac-12 basketball properties. So when you kind of adjust for that, it's really about, the equivalent value is about $4 per viewer. And when you look at that, it's estimated that the Big Ten benefited by an increase of about 20 to 30% based on the competition between CBS, Fox, ESPN, Amazon. So, I mean, when you look at that and kind of account for that, there being no linear competition for the Pac-12 and really limited streaming composition, I think, a good estimate for what the Pac-12 would be about $3 a viewer. And if you look at all the average numbers and the ratings, Amazon, if you expect to draw about 3 million viewers for that Amazon Friday night game, which, with context, the championship game on linear platform got 4.5 million. So I think $3 million viewers is a very reasonable estimate of that. And you do that based on a 13-game package. That's about 117 million that could come from Amazon. ESPN, a 15-game package, based on about 1.5 million viewers, which is the Pac-12 After Dark average viewership, is about 67.5 million. And the 37 games, so if they just have 10 teams, that's 65 games of inventory, 45 conference games and 20 non-conference, home games against either a P5 or some sort of scrub that they're getting 2 home games on assumption. So we're talking about 65 games of inventory. If you're just talking about 15 ESPN games being on a linear platform, that leaves 50 games on either Amazon or ESPN Plus or Apple, depending on which way they go. And that amounts to 76% in streaming. So I think that's sort of consistent for what we've heard, a sort of heavy streaming. And if you kind of multiply that rate by $4.5 million for the conference championship game, in total you get about $280 million, $81 million. And if you divide that by 11, that's about $25.5 million per school. Will it turn out to be that way? I don't know, but I think the valuation's probably going to come in somewhere between $25 to $30 million, in my opinion. It just depends on what the market situation is. If it was still at $4 a viewer, I think they I think they end up hitting around $32 million per school, but I don't think that's going to be the case. So it's very interesting to have those numbers in context and perspective, and I think I'll be very curious to see how my estimate and my valuations turn out when this actually does materialize next week. But when it comes right down to it, you're right, the Arizona president, it's about what's the best deal. And if it's, if they get $32 million and, maybe they stomach 75% streaming, maybe, I don't know, maybe that's the fact. But if it's $25 million and 75% streaming, all bets are off. So I guess my overall point is, a deal may be close. I don't think a deal is imminent. I think having a deal in front of them is imminent.
Yep.
I don't think signing the deal is imminent.
Yep.
And the real question you have to ask is, okay, the hard, part one is what are the actual numbers, right? I mean,
Yep.
Part two is what does everybody want to do with those numbers?
Yeah.
Is there a push for unequal revenue sharing? Is there, like you said, do some schools want assurances that they'll be more on the linear platforms and the streaming platforms? I mean, I think the second part is just getting the agreement. And like you mentioned, it's not that they have a deal, and then they work out a grant of rights. That this is all done concurrently, but they're going to have the numbers or the package in front of them, and then they're going to have to figure out how they want to split that package amongst themselves. And then, it'll come down to, if they agree to something, the grant of rights is implicit. But if they don't, then, it'll be very interesting to see the debate that goes on about how they want to approach that. I know, I believe, I could be wrong. Is it true that it's rumored the Big Ten should have its commissioner in place by May? Is that correct, or am I just smoking something?
Well, they know that Kevin Warren is leaving in the middle of April, and they thought they would get a commissioner sooner rather than later because Turnkey is the consultant, and they've been doing this. They've been a part of almost every new commissioner in the Power Five search for, last 5, 6, 7 years. So they, I think they'll get one in by May. Kevin Warren's leaving though, middle of April.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it'll be very interesting. I think Mo and Vision had mentioned that the deputy commissioner might be in play, or I think obviously Mark Silverman. It'll be interesting because I think whoever the Big Ten announces as its commissioner will really give a good indication of where the league is headed. And I can see Washington and Oregon. Like I said, they have every incentive to kind of hold off from executing something until they, absolutely have a good feel for what the direction of the conference is going to be. Yeah. It may still ultimately be no for them, but they're not going to rush and sign anything until they know that. Because why would you? Imagine the scenario that they agree to something next week and sign something, and everyone kumbaya signs off and everything's done by the end of March, and then let's say in June, it seems to be like in June we always have a conference realignment bombshell, 2021 and 2022, and then who knows? And maybe Florida State, and a couple other universities decide to challenge something and do something risky, and all of a sudden the ACC, becomes the new fad in conference realignment, and we're doing all sorts of emergency episodes on that. Washington and Oregon don't want to say, "Oh crap, we've locked ourselves into something." And now, the Big Ten's going to go try to, grab FSU or UNC or UVA. A lot of great properties there, and be shut out. I just think what people need to understand is we're going to finally see what the package is, but that by no means means that a deal is close to being done or agreed to. And and sorry to take up everybody's time and to just jot out all those numbers. I know I'm a geek, but go ahead, Greg.
Thank you. Thanks for the phone call.
Thanks a lot, everybody, and have a great afternoon, everyone. Take care.
Thank you. I do have to give credit for John Wilner for releasing those statements from the Arizona president. Really, I do. That was yesterday. He released it today. Because those words, man.
Call from
Lewis.
Lewis is in the house. Thanks for calling, good sir. The floor is yours.
Well, I'll be relatively quick because I'm about ready to head down to Orlando soon to go see some NCAA basketball with my Duke Blue Devils.
Yes.
And
Duke.
I tell you, we are in somewhat of a recession because the flights and everything was much cheaper to book this last-minute trip, because I just found out Sunday they were headed there, than a similar trip I had to book in 1998. I remember the airfare was about $700, and this was around $500. So prices are softening, and tickets, I was able to get tickets 10, 12 rows from the floor for all the games for maybe 20% markup over face. So either way, but let me get to the points, and then I'll get off.
Yep.
The 2 points. First, I find it interesting and heartwarming in a way that the Arizona president said he was in favor of a Big 12 expansion in 2021. So many people associated, not with the Pac-12, but associated with some of their supporters, some of their fans in the narrative have said some rather downtrodden things about the Big 12, and there's been this back and forth. Yeah. I don't want to engage in that, but at least the Arizona president doesn't apparently look at the Big 12 schools as being somewhat beneath them, and that he was willing to expand, which would have been a smart move for Kliavkoff if they'd expanded with the Big 12 schools. They could have killed the Big 12 in the summer of 2021, and none of this discussion's happening. So either way, I thought that was interesting. Beyond that, where I see this going, it reminds me, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie, the HBO movie, The Late Shift from the mid-'90s with David Letterman. Letterman loved NBC. He wanted to be on The Tonight Show. He wanted Johnny Carson's show. He really wanted the show. And NBC, in the movie anyway, presented an offer that was interesting and attractive, but still shoddy in many details, and Letterman left. Letterman didn't want to leave NBC, but he left because the deal just wasn't good enough. He took a better deal at CBS. This is exactly where I think Arizona and Colorado are. Yeah. If the deal is just a little bit worse, they're going to stay with the Pac-12, maybe even significantly worse. But if it's a complete mess, or if Kliavkoff has a complete mess, I don't see how they don't look elsewhere if that's the case. So that's where I see it going, and I wish you the best with the rest of your show, Greg. Thank you.
Thank you, Lewis. Beautiful call once again. Yeah, unfortunately, USC stopped any Pac-12 expansion with Big 12 schools in 2021. Where the Pac-12, for obvious reasons, where the Pac-12 screwed up was years and years and years ago when Texas decided not to go. They still should have expanded into the Central Time Zone. They should have increased their bandwidth of exposure. They should have gotten it. They should have taken some Big 12 schools. They should have taken an Oklahoma. I don't know if Oklahoma would have ultimately said yes without Texas tagging along, but they should have taken some. They could have. When Texas bailed out, Pac-12 shut it down, and they should have kept going with expansion plans. Oop, someone hung up. So USC sort of stopped at 2020. Not sort of. They definitely stopped at 2021 potential Pac-12 expansion plans. And I can see, look, Big Ten getting a new commissioner real soon. Kevin Warren stepping down in the middle of April. You can see why there's an incentive for the other Pac-12 schools, not named Oregon and Washington, to kind of hurry up the bid, to say, come on, let's get this presented deal in front of us. Let's hash it out, and let's see who signs, who doesn't sign, right? So there's a timing aspect to all this. It's late in the game, as Yogi Berra says. It's getting late early here in Pac-12 country. All right, back to your comments. Phone line, 763-260-1333. I don't know. I'm only going to talk about this once. Yeah, you know what? That happens. You know what? I'm going to take the phone lines off just for a second. I want to just get into this one more time. Yeah, there's sources who are talking to certain reporters. They have a long-term relationship. There's bias. This is human nature. Yeah, there's leaks given to McMurphy and Dodd and others, and they're not given to to Wilner and Canzano. But there's also leaks given to Wilner and Canzano that aren't given to this other gentleman. It doesn't mean that people are lying. It doesn't mean there's a plot. Right? It's just to argue that there's nothing been going wrong in the Pac-12 negotiations, that it's just a PR issue with the Pac-12. That's not been the case. That's not been the case. You know, in March 31st, when we were given the information that USC called the Big Ten alone, and then we went 3 months, putting out information, we were being tracked by the Big Ten. We took that evidence and we showed it to USC 247, Minnesota 247. We showed that evidence to all Big Ten podcasts with Big Kurt and Jeffrey the Greek. We knew what was going on, and we presented that information to, I'm not going to name specific names, but they're on this list here in this comment that's on your screen. Not the Dodd and the Murphy, but the Pac-12 people, the Pac-12 writers. And they did nothing with it. We provided them accurate information, but they didn't know who I was. I didn't have a relationship with them, so they ignored it. Okay, fine. But, Canzano and Wilner wasn't sitting there going, "Oh boy, this might be happening." So therefore, but you know what? We're Pac-12. We just parrot positive Pac-12 information, and we're part of a plot to keep the Pac-12 together. So we'll ignore this information. No, that's not how it works. If Dodd and McMurphy and any of these reporters got information that the Pac-12 just got a really good deal, they would report it. They don't sit here and report negative Pac-12 stuff day in, day out, day in for 12 months of the year. But you know what? They were getting information. So were we, so were everyone else, that things weren't going good. That schools were talking with the Big 12. And the Arizona president just put this to bed. Is this more deflection? I don't know. I don't know what's going on here. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous to go. You want to disagree with Dennis Dodd in some parts of his article? Disagree with it. McMurphy, disagree with it. Canzano, disagree with it. Wilner, disagree with it. Peek around the corner, disagree with it. But to say that there was nothing going on, it couldn't possibly happen, and that it was all just a bag of lies conducted by the conductor of this lady, professional lady who's been successful all of her, has a very successful career, director of marketing at Endeavor, and to lay this on her doorstep and say she's the one conducting this plot. Again, if I was her, I'd be having lawyers lining up. This is terrible. And that's why a couple nights ago we called it out on Twitter. We're not playing games here at Peek Around the Corner. We have fun. The passionate college football. We're going to be covering the spring football games. You guys know how passionate I am. I know how passionate you are. You're part of this PATC community. I love the Pac-12 schools. I love the Big 12 schools. I have rallied against the Big 12 leadership in years past. I've rallied against I went after Kevin Warren during the pandemic because it was warranted. But we're not part of some plot and getting money from this group or that group. That's just not how it works. And these people, these reporters who've been doing this for decades, are not in the business of taking marching orders from a consultant group of Endeavor. So those who laid this out on Twitter, and that just didn't happen one time, it was over and over and over again. And I got caught up in this dragnet. People were accusing me of being part of a plot. So I called it out. And now Arizona president, in his words in public, just put a dagger into all that. Just shattered that complete nonsense. So if you hear this again from people on Twitter, that it was all just Big 12 Karen or whatever stupid talking points that they're bringing up today, it's all been blown away. by this simple interview by the Arizona president. He simply stated, and we'll go through it right now. Arizona president. Whoops. My bad. Pac-12 media rights. Arizona president Robert Robbins says competitive deal necessary for schools to stick together. Right there, that thing right there alone, don't have to go through the rest of the article, completely blows up this ridiculous plot, conspiracy plot. Okay, that's all the time I'm going to spend on that. Exactly. Any reporter who gives up investigative integrity destroys himself, so that is foolish. Absolutely true. 365 Sports, they're not taking marching orders. They're not taking marching orders from anybody. They told the truth. Sports Business Journal, when they said it's not looking good, it could happen. Poaching from the Pac-12 could happen. When other people are reporting this, and we're still at that point, it could happen. It might not happen. Biscuits and gravy. Darn, I really wanted to join a plot. Yeah, there would be no. I'm not, like I say, I think it was Roy Rogers who said this, and I say the same thing. Greg Fluger, I would not want to be a member of any organization or a plot that would want to have me as a member. It's like pretty funny stuff. It will be funny a month from now, but at the time, someone had to speak up. I had to speak up. I did it, and I'm done with it. Yes, any conference that adds research universities brings on big money to the universities. More money than the TV contracts can give annually. Absolutely. Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. These are not football teams. There are schools with a football team. Absolutely correct. However, these are schools that have their front porch is their athletic department. Their athletic departments help attract the better students across the country. So you do not want your athletic department, your sponsored teams, to get buried in exposure. You do not want that to disappear. And if you can have both, we may keep your great research, your great academic standards, and have a viable, vital, really good athletic department, you do both. There's no question these Pac-12 schools want to stay together. And everybody has said that. Everyone. And they weren't going to blow up until they saw the media deal in front of them. And they might not blow up. It might not be an implosion. The deal might be good enough. Robbins seems to have some optimism, the University of Arizona president. So what GL Perez 77, you're speaking the truth, but in this time of growing change, we know where this is going. We've talked about it all the way in episode 1 of Peek Around the Corner, where these student athletes are going to get direct deposits, direct payments from the conferences and schools, or both, when these student athletes are highly probably going to become some sort of employees. The money difference, the money part of it is so vitally important, and so is exposure going forward. Money is going to be connected to wins, success, and exposure for your school and student athletes more and more as we go forward. Because now the schools with the big money are going to be able to take more and more advantage of their money advantage when the student athletes are getting paid directly from the school and or conference or both. Not just NIL money, direct payments, higher compensation for the student athletes. That's why USC decided to give the Big Ten a phone call and start to try to get into the conference. As we broke on March 31st, we gave all the reasons why. It is a change. We're going into a different environment. All the ties that bind the Pac-12 schools together are still binding them together. They're peer research universities. No question. And no one argues that. But because of the change that's going to be happening, it's already happening. But more and more and more change. Johnson versus NCAA. We did a show on it. We did a live show on it. That's what these presidents and athletic directors are thinking about. So it isn't 1970. It isn't 1990. It isn't even 2010. It's 2023. And where we're going is different than where we've been. Sometimes you got to let the old ways die. Black Rain, the Big 12 NFL partnership, will also help in recruiting. Absolutely. Exposure, all that will help in recruiting. Exposure, exposure, exposure. Once again, it isn't about the money. Not in this case. Of course it's about the money. But in this Pac-12 media deal, my first look when we pop open the hood isn't going to be about whether they make 26, 32, 35, 28.5 million per school per year. Now, the first thing I'm looking at is where are these tier 1 games going to be played? The second thing I'm going to be looking at is where is the Pac-12 network games, the Olympic sports, the non-revenue sports, where are those games going to be played? How's the access? That's what I'm going to be looking at. Wilner is parroting Pac-12 talking points today that the Big 12 will still have a lot of streaming and that the Pac-12 is just looking to improve its Tier 3 situation while avoiding Tier 1, Tier 2 fault. Look, I haven't seen his talking points, so I won't have my comments directed at that. But the Big 12, they have a lot of streaming. Yes, it's on ESPN+. Yes, it gives great access to the student athletes, their families, their parents, their fan bases, which is way better than they had before. Yes, it's not as good as the ACC network, the SEC network, or the Big Ten network. ESPN Plus have a lot of streaming, but the Big 12 Tier 1 games are not on ESPN Plus. I'm talking about where's the Pac-12 Tier 1 games? Where's it going to be? Where is that Oregon and Washington game going to be? Where is, let's say Arizona goes out to a 6-0 start and Oregon State goes out to a 6-0 start. It's Oregon State versus Arizona State. Where is that game being played at? Where can you watch the game? What kind of eyeballs can you get a 6-0 Oregon State, 6-0 Arizona State? Both teams are in the top 25. Where can I see that game? It should be the number 1 game selected for week 7 or week 8 of the season. Where can you watch it? Because on the Big 12, you're going to be able to watch on ESPN or Fox. Fox 6:30 game, 7:30 game Eastern, wherever you're located, or ESPN. Where are you going to see that Pac-12? That's the question. That's the question. So this whole, again, Big 12 have a lot of games streaming. Yes, they did before when Oklahoma and Texas were and their old yes, ESPN Plus, yes. But they're Tier 1 games. the games that elevate the league and the value of the complete media package. Those games are going to be easy to find. Those games, as a casual fan, you're going to run into when you click in your clicker, when you click in your remote control. Those games are going to be fine when you go into the bars. The question is, where are the tier 1 games of Pac-12 going to be located? Are they going to be behind a certain specific sports app on Amazon Prime Media? Are they going to be on Apple TV Plus? How many of the tier 1 Pac-12 games will ESPN actually receive? That's the question. And then when you want to get into the third tier content, the Olympic sports, the non-revenue sports, yes, Big 12 is on ESPN Plus, and you know what? It's not as good as the ACC. It's not as good as the ACC network, Big Ten network, and SEC network, because whatever happens on ESPN Plus, however many more sponsors, however many more subscriptions and money that gets brought in, isn't tied to the Big 12 schools. They just get a flat fee, enough money to pay for their production costs of those Olympic sports, non-revenue sports. But I ask you, where are those Pac-12 Olympic sports going to be? Are they going to be on ESPN Plus? Okay, then it's the same as the Big 12. Or is it going to be on Apple TV? Is it going to be on Amazon? Don't think it's going to be on Amazon. Amazon doesn't want the tonnage. So it's going to be on Apple TV or ESPN Plus. So the talking point about Big 12 having a lot of streaming, yes, they do, but their most valuable product, the most valuable content isn't on streaming. But will the Pac-12's top tier game be on streaming? And how much of it will be on streaming? That's the question. It's a lot of deflection going on between parties on both sides. We are here peek around the corner. We focus on the straight shoot of it all. T-Duck says, Southern California, UCLA going to suffer in the Big Ten. Bruins have never won the Pac-12. Southern California just once. Yeah, the wins and losses might suffer. So will Oklahoma and Texas. The wins and losses might suffer. But those presidents of athletic departments, athletic directors, they want to give the most exposure to the student athletes possible, right? And when it comes to money, compensation level, that's going to rise. So it's hard to say that UCLA and USC, they did not go to the Big Ten to to have an easier road to win championships. And if Oregon is able to get the invitation from the Big Ten, Oregon's going to take it. And the calculations that where is it easier to win a Big Ten, where is it easier to win a conference championship? That's where I want to go. That's not even part of the equation. That's not part of the decision making. It wasn't for Texas and Oklahoma. It wasn't for USC and UCLA. And T-Duck, it won't be for Oregon. Yeah. Big 12 will have, Fox Big Noon, ESPN Game Day. I would think that there's probably not as many, they're not going to get that Big Noon slot too many times. That's going to be Big 10. But they're going to be on at night, Fox at night, no question about it. The phone lines are back on. 763-260-1333. Call in. Talk about anything you want in college football. The stories we've covered today. Arizona State President Michael Crow says we are committed to the Pac-12, episode 167. Catch that. It was released this morning. Episode 168 of this morning. Arizona, the NFL and the Big 12 are in partnership for a pro day at Frisco, Texas, and it's inside the Dallas Cowboys training facility, sometime in the spring, 2024. They're going to be doing their own pro day, their own combine in front of all the 32 NFL teams. And it's going to be placed on the NFL Network, and all that marketing, all that promoting is going to be across all the NFL platforms. It's going to be dynamic.
Call from
Moen.
Moen Vision. Mr. Buckeye's in the house.
Good afternoon, Greg. How are you doing today?
Good afternoon. How we doing? A lot of stories breaking this morning. Arizona president. Woo!
Absolutely. And I think the thing that people aren't taking away from that is that he is more or less, as the president, resigned himself to the fact they're not going to hit what the Big 12 gets. That media deal is probably going to be in that 22 to 28 range. So he might not have seen the numbers yet, but I think they've got a good idea.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And last year, Klyavkov did not want to extend because he told him when they go to open market, he was second in the 40 to 50 range. And boy, 22 to 28 is far short of the 40 to 50 range.
And less visibility. So
right, less visibility, less exposure. So I mean, boy, that's a shortfall. But I can understand they would want to stick for just $2 to $4 million. That's fine. But if you're Oregon and Washington, how can you sign a grant of rights for 22 to 28 million?
You can't. You can't do it.
But the media deal is going to be contingent on them signing the grant of rights. No media company is going to just let Oregon and Washington off the hook and be stuck with the other 8 schools. Nothing against the other 8 schools, but they're clearly not on the same level as Washington and Oregon. So it's kind of a catch-22 situation there.
Yeah, it's on the knife's edge.
Yeah, and the other thing I wanted to point out was we don't know about unequal revenue sharing.
Yeah.
That could be Arizona signaling that they would be open to unequal revenue sharing. That maybe Oregon and Washington do get towards that 40 number, and everybody else has to take that 22 to 25 number to coexist within the conference.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that last part. Are you still there?
I said that, yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me, Doug?
Yeah. Having a little problem.
I said that it's just the unequal revenue sharing. It could be Arizona's president signaling that they're open to unequal revenue sharing.
Yeah.
They may take a few million less than your average Big 12 school to keep Oregon and Washington happy with. Oregon and Washington maybe get 35, 36 million. But even then, I still think it's going to be very hard for Oregon and Washington to swallow a media deal that over the next 5 years, Rutgers is going to be making close to $200 million more than Oregon and Washington.
Yeah,
So while the other schools may not leave for a few million, the Big Ten is certainly able to go in there and make an offer to Oregon and Washington for 40.
Yeah.
And Oregon and Washington are bolting right away. So
yeah,
I just wanted to call and say everybody's committed until they ain't, Greg.
Yeah. I'm so happy that the Arizona president said all this in public, because it is what's been going on. The deal has to be there, or for the conference to stay together. That's the truth. And none of this is being dictated by any reporter or any plot. It has to do with the fact where we are in the marketplace right now, the shrinking media market. They're in a recession, and the Pac-12 choose not to strike a deal early in October of last year. So this is where we are. This is the truth. This is the truth. And Arizona president did all of us a great favor by saying what he said. He's looking for the best deal, like you say, and many others. If it's a little bit less than what the Big 12 can get them, they're staying in the Pac-12. But if it's a disaster, they're gone. They are absolutely gone.
Yeah.
So,
Well, the point you made earlier that was nobody wants to leave, but outside of Oregon State and Washington State, everybody has contacted other conferences.
Yeah.
We know the four corners are talking to the Big 12. We know California, Oregon, Washington, and Stanford tried to make an entree to the Big 10. So I think it's just a little funny that they're all proclaiming how committed they are when just, we know that they're not. You've got several reporters talking about the Big 12. You broke that Oregon and Washington were potentially still in play with the Big 10. We had the Cal Board of Regents saying, yeah, we were trying to negotiate a deal to get us out of here. And we weren't worried about the other 6 schools. So, cloak and dagger, Greg.
Cloak and dagger. Cloak and dagger.
All right, Greg, I'll get off here and give somebody else a chance to talk.
Beautiful. Thank you, Monovision. Mr. Buckeye in the house. Thank you, Mr. Boren, for the compliment. Appreciate it. Another phone call.
Call from
Chad.
All right, the floor is yours. I didn't get the name.
Chad, C-H-A-D.
All right. What's up?
Thank you for, number one, thanks for having me. I love your show.
Thank you, sir.
Yep, love to give a shout out too, if I can, to all my fellow Mountaineer fans, WVU.
Got it.
Just a couple of questions. I'd like to get your opinion. What value do you think that Arizona and Colorado actually brings to the Big 12?
Great question. Great question. Great question.
Outside of time zones.
Outside of, you mean outside the fact that they extend your bandwidth? You know what they do? You know what the value they bring if Arizona and Colorado comes in the Big 12? It means that you've solidified yourself as the third or fourth conference in the country. It solidifies yourself that you are going to be in the room for the 2026 Great Gold Rush when we have a new playoff. We don't know what it's going to look like because the playoff system that we've committed to is only for 2024, 2025. When 2026 opens up, it's going to be open bidding. It might be 12 teams. It might be 16 teams. We don't even know who's going to be in the room to vote on it. But if you get Colorado and Arizona, Big 12, and Gonzaga, you have solidified yourself. Every institution in that conference, from West Virginia to Oklahoma State, they are going to be in the room to decide the future of college football and college sports from 2026 and beyond. I think that's the ultimate value. Yormark is looking at, he wants a Big 12 to be a national conference because that can be their strength. They're never going to be the conference that's going to have the most eyeballs, the biggest media contracts, the biggest research universities, but they can be the national conference, the true national conference that can solidify all those schools with all those intense, great fan bases to make sure that they are in their room for 2026. I think that's the value that an Arizona and Colorado would bring to Yormark and to West Virginia.
Well, and Yormark had mentioned that he thinks that the Big 12 basketball is underrated and undervalued. So
true.
I'd be very to see how that moves forward down the road.
Yes.
One more question, I'll let you go. Warren, the commissioner of the Big 10, his last day is in April, correct?
Correct.
Does he still have power in the Big 10 to make decisions?
No.
So he does not? Okay.
No.
So it'd be up to the presidents and the chancellors, I guess.
Yep.
Going back to OU and, Oregon and Washington, a lot of rumors out there that these guys didn't want to be the ones that put the final death blow into the Pac. So Pac-12,
Yeah.
Pac-10, or you want to call it at this point. But that was my question. I didn't know if he was going to go out and kind of with blood on his hands per se, but it doesn't sound like that's going to be an issue.
No, there was even reports out there that there was at least one media company that would not move on a potential Big Ten expansion in this window of time with Oregon and Washington if Kevin Warren is still sitting there as the commissioner. So yeah, he's going to have to leave. Someone's going to have to come in. So for this thing to happen with Oregon and Washington joining the Big Ten, Oregon and Washington are going to have to slow play this. They're going to have to slow play this Pac-12 media deal some more, maybe talk about unequal revenue sharing, just to wait and see if there's an opportunity arises with the new Big Ten commissioner.
Or possibly even come into the Big Ten with, 60% versus 100% media rights. But all right, well, listen, I'll let you go, and I'll ask one more question. Arizona State. What is there a legislation that both these schools have to move together? Yes or no?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's
okay.
No, but it'd be a lot easier if they moved together. We've been told, we've been saying it since January 31st. Out of those two schools, who would move first? It has to be Arizona. It would be Arizona. We've been talking about that for months. And that's how it's playing out.
Right. Well, thanks for taking my call. Love your show.
Thank you, good sir. Call again. Cameron B., thanks for the super chat. How many games are in the Tier 1 package of games? Well, 14, 15 week schedule. That's how many games, right? Your top game. And that carries the value. The new, let me just take off the phone line for a second. I want to explain something real quick here. Just give me a moment. I will put the phone lines back up in a little bit of time here. Great question, Cameron B. Look, the new deal that the SEC signed with ESPN, we don't even know how much more. We don't know how much it really is. We know it's over $300 million. It could be over $330 million. $350 million. We don't know the exact number, especially now that they included Oklahoma and Texas into the mix. But that new Tier 1 deal, most of it was a Tier 1 deal. SEC signed a new Tier 1 deal with ESPN. No longer will the Tier 1 games be CBS starting in 2024. Okay, CBS next year is going to have a mixture of SEC games and Big Ten games. 2024, CBS is all with the Big Ten. SEC is going to be all with ESPN for the Tier 1 games. In that deal, for Tier 1 games, and also just one SEC football game from each SEC school will have to be placed on ESPN Plus, and then a handful of basketball games more have to be placed on ESPN Plus. So a handful of basketball games, each SEC school having put one game on ESPN Plus. So each SEC school have to put one game on the SEC network in ESPN Plus, and then those 15 games was worth way more than $300 million a year. Way more. I mean, we don't know what the number is going to be. Could be 400. It's your Tier 1. We've talked about this analogy before. It's your highest price. It's your most valuable content that raises everyone's boats, that raises everyone's value up. It's like when we talked about Adele. We talked about the music industry. When Adele was selling all these records, everyone loved it. Even the other performers and singers, because when you went to the store at the time, when you went and got CDs, When you bought an Adele record, you were more likely to buy someone else's record as well. Adele lifted everyone's sales upward. So your tier 1, that part of the contract, lifts the value of everything upward. So it's so vitally important. So, where is the Pac-12 tier 1 games? How much are they going to get for it? And where are they going to be placed? Because you want eyeballs on those games. Because you want sponsorships, advertisers to come in and flood whatever media company puts you on those tier 1 games. You want the money to roll in afterwards. You need eyeballs. You need national advertisers willing to spend big money. So who's ever putting on your games, they're making money as well. Fox Sports has loved the Big Ten. The Big Noon has given Fox Sports so much money because the national advertisers are flooding their advertiser money onto Big Ten live events. And then the Big Ten went and grabbed the city of Los Angeles. That's what's going on. So those tier 1, again, I'm not getting back to the discussion of Big 12 has a lot of games that are being streamed. Yeah, true. But the tier 1 games is where it needs to be at. Where is the Pac-12 tier 1 games, the most valuable product? Where is that going to be placed on a weekly basis starting in 2024? Okay, we're going to put the phone lines back on. I just needed to explain that part. All right, phone lines are back on. 763-260-1333. Call in at College Football's Peek Around the Corner. The floor will be yours. You can talk about anything you want in college football. We've had a crazy, crazy day so far. March 15th. 2 episodes and a live show. And I think all of it was warranted. All of it. It's been a crazy day. And you think it's crazy now, just wait till they get that deal in front of them. The Pac-12 presidents. Is it going to be good enough to keep the conference together? And if it is, and if they all sign the grant of rights, it's going to be fascinating to see how it all plays out for the Pac-12. Will that heavy streaming deal work? Will it work? And if it does, wow. Hold on, holy smokes. 4 or 5 years down the line, the Pac-12, they'll be happy when it works, if it works. But if it doesn't, it's high risk. It's very high risk. How are Tier 1 games decided? Well, it depends on how the season flows. We know that a lot of games are going to be where the networks want. The game, Michigan, Ohio State, right? But Tier 1, the top game selected, or Tier 2, in 2019, I said this example before, it was 8-0 Minnesota versus 8-0 Penn State. That was put on ABC, bam, bam, right? Prime time, bam, out there. Not prime time, it was 2:30. Big game. Millions and millions and millions of viewers. No one thought Minnesota was going to go 8-0, but the game was there, ready to be selected. Minnesota, Penn State. Gophers beat Penn State. Gophers went to 9-0. You get that every year. Someone surprises TCU, right? The value of these media companies to have a contract with a conference where there's a depth of games to choose from week in and week out helps the value. That's the problem with Notre Dame. That's the problem Notre Dame is going to be having going into their negotiations with NBC. Notre Dame is a standalone product. It's going to be difficult for NBC to give the same amount of money to Notre Dame as these Big Ten schools are getting. I hope that answers all your Tier 1 questions. Keep going. A lot of great conversations going into the PATC community chat room. Let's just go quickly over what this show is all about. Because there's new people. There's a whole lot of new people coming in. Yes, Minnesota-Wisconsin matchups. Sometimes, to be honest with you, sometimes those games draw millions. Sometimes they don't because it's rivalry weekend. It's the last game of the season. So Minnesota and Wisconsin, if it's a big game, yeah. But there's a whole bunch of possible big games of the Big Ten. You got Ohio State, Michigan. That's always going to drive millions of viewers. Penn State, Michigan State, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, Nebraska's on Friday. So that's not a problem. But sometimes that Minnesota-Wisconsin game gets buried because it's not a big game in regards to the Big Ten race. But when it is, it's a huge game. Anyways, let's get back. Let's get back to the main story, why we're having this live show. Pac-12 media rights. Arizona President Robert Robbins says competitive deal necessary for schools to stick together. So, it's not a plot. There is some nervousness. They need to see a deal. People who've been saying differently have not been a part of some crazy plot that some people are saying out there. Hold on, I'm checking one. Okay. Pac-12 media rights. Pac-12 competing for bronze media with Big Ten, SEC far out in front. Arizona President Robert Robbins called the departures of UCLA and USC clearly huge losses, but said the remaining Pac-12 schools are rallying and joining arms to make it work as the conference navigates an uncertain landscape. Central to the process of making it work is the completion of a media rights agreement for the contract cycle that begins in the summer of 2024. Negotiations began last July and should be resolved soon, Robbins told the hotline during an interview Tuesday. Asked about the speculation over the future of the conference, Robbins rejected the notion that schools, including Arizona, would bolt for the Big 12 prior to being presented with a media rights proposal. And really, no serious reporter, not peek around the corner, nobody has said that a school would bolt before they see the media rights proposal. And again, at Peek Around the Corner, we've been telling you for weeks that none of the Pac-12 presidents have seen a comprehensive offer in front of them. They wanted to see it last week. It looks like they're going to see it next week, early next week, this weekend. Back to the article. Mercury News, John Wilner, is heavily dependent on Commissioner George Kliakoff and his team negotiating a good media deal for us to stay competitive. In other words, we need to see a deal. This is Robbins, Arizona president. We need to see a competitive deal to stay together, and the onus is on George Kliakoff and his staff, his team, to negotiate a media deal. If they don't see it, back to the article. I don't think anybody wants to leave. Why would you move for a couple $1 million a year more? True, absolutely. And then he compared the situation to competing for a bronze medal. The Big Ten media rights contracts with Fox and CBS and NBC signed in August would distribute roughly $67 million per year to each campus. The SEC's all-in deal with ESPN is expected to spin off at least $60 million per school once Texas and Oklahoma come aboard in 2024. Meanwhile, the Big 12 and the Pac-12 are in third tier along with the ACC. The Big 12 agreed in October to a renewal of its contracts with ESPN and Fox that will reportedly distribute $31.66 million annually. Again, this is Robbins. I would love to be closer to the Big 10 or the SEC, but being closer to the Big 12 is more realistic. Get us close. Get us close to the Big 12. And Arizona's going to stay in the conference. Kliavkoff has done a great job working on the media deal, and I think he'll bring us something that's good enough. Ray Anderson thinks that they'll get something that's good enough for Arizona State. Good enough to keep the conference together, but it's resting on the knife's edge. Back to the article. Twice during a 10-minute conversation, Robbins made a reference to the Pac-12 as the Conference of Champions, but he painted a nuanced picture for Arizona, citing the school's proximity to the Big 12 footprint and that league's powerhouse basketball brand as the basis for some affinities. He also addressed the academic piece. Arizona is a member of the Association of American Universities, as is every school in the Pac-12 except Arizona State, Washington State, and Oregon State. So, Robbins, he mentions in this 10-minute conversation, look, we're close to the Big 12 footprint. We understand our big basketball brand would have some, some attraction towards the Big 12 basketball conference. He's laying this out, ladies and gentlemen. He's laying it out for everybody to see. Back to the article. Kansas will be the only AAU school in the Big 12 once Texas departs. That's important to us in terms of research, says Robbins. Asked about discussions between Arizona and the Big 12, Robbins didn't answer directly, but said he has friends in the conference. He has friends in the Big 12. He's not going to answer yes or no whether Arizona has been discussing stuff with the Big 12. Yes, they have. Yes, it's been reported. Jason Scheer was absolutely correct. 365 Sports was absolutely correct. Dennis Dodd was absolutely correct. Brett McMurphy was absolutely correct. Peek Around the Corner was absolutely correct. So forth and so on. Not a plot. Not some made-up propaganda machine. All was true. Robbins didn't answer directly, but said his friends in the conference and was in favor of adding the remaining Big 12 schools after Texas and Oklahoma announced they were joining the SEC in the summer of 2021. And finally, I personally like the idea. This is Robbins. I personally like the idea of forming the Pac-20 or the Big Pac, whatever you want to call it, he said. I thought it would have been really cool, but it got very complicated. Ultimately, Robbins framed the future of the Pac-12 as a business decision. Oh my goodness, really? Really? Ultimately, Robbins framed the future of the Pac-12 as a business decision. They have a decision to make. The University of Arizona has a decision to make. Back to the article, with the onus on Kliavkoff to craft a competitive media rights deal. This is on Kliavkoff. This is on his media team. They got to set forth a comprehensive deal in front of the University of Arizona president. It has to be good enough for them to stay in the Pac-12. Robbins, we're all committed, he said. I'm pretty confident George will bring us a deal that we're happy with and that preserves the Pac-12 to make the next step together or with the 12 schools if we add anybody. There it is. There it is. Ladies and gentlemen, the phone lines are open. They're back open. President of Arizona comes out and says it. They got to see a deal, the comprehensive deal. It hasn't been, the deal hasn't been in place. So all these reports coming out that you've read where they know how much or where it's going to be, no, those have been erroneous reports. We do not know what the deal is. It looks like we're getting close. It looks like they could see it any moment. These presidents could see it tonight, tomorrow. It could be presented formally next week, early next week. It has to be. It should be. I think it will be. Kenneth Evans, pretty upset in the chat room. It is not entertaining. The Big Ten is uncompelling to anyone not in the Rust Belt, but continues to buy and corrupt universities outside of its region only on the basis of a bigger paycheck. Thank you for Kenneth Evans for coming into the chat. Patrick Boren, that is what I'm sensing. But next week we'll reveal. They may take some time after getting the deal before they actually break the news of jumping. Absolutely correct, DS Terps. Conference realignment has been happening for 100 years, not the last 10. It's going to continue for the next 100 years. The number one rule in realignment is it never sleeps. Never sleeps. Kenneth Bowman, in the history of mankind, every school's president will support and back the conference until they don't. Absolutely correct. I think Arizona president basically laid out this interview with John Wilner, and he's explaining why, if they do jump, he basically explained why we need a competitive deal. The onus is on Kliavkoff. If the competitive deal's there, we will stay. If it's not, we will go. I think it's really obvious here what Arizona president insinuated, was said directly here in this interview. Again, the phone number is 763-260-1333. We've had 2 episodes this morning. Episode 167, if you haven't seen it, take a look at it. Episode 168. Episode 167 was on the article talking about how Arizona State's president, Michael Crow, says we are committed to the Pac-12. We opened the day talking about that article, putting it out there. So go to episode 167, watch that. Episode 168 was the news that broke that the Big 12 and the NFL got in partnership. Starting the spring of 2024, there's going to be a pro day, conference-wide pro day. All 14 Big 12 schools are going to have their football players, their student athletes, go to Frisco, Texas, inside the Dallas Cowboys training facility, and they're going to be doing their combine, their pro day in front of all 32 NFL teams, and it's going to be broadcasted on the NFL Network. The NFL Network, and the NFL using all of its platform, all of its power, all of its marketing, all of its branding. They're going to be promoting the Big 12 Pro Day on all their platforms. And I would be shocked if the Big 10, SEC, and some other conferences don't try to do what the Big 12 is going to do starting in 2024. The problem for the SEC and the Big 10 to do what the Big 12 is doing is they would need everybody to buy in. Big 10 would need Ohio State to buy in. The SEC would need Alabama, Georgia to buy in. I don't know if they would all buy in to do an all conference-wide pro day. But the Big 12, all those schools, they are aligned behind Yormark. And Yormark, he struck another deal. He struck another deal. And he closed up on the deal. Very impressive. Very impressive. New Big Ten commissioner will be Mr. Yormark. I don't think so. I don't think it's going to be Yormark. Yormark has the spot. He's rocking and rolling. Big 12. I think he loves the challenge. I don't think that's happening. Bonehead says Commissioner Kevin Warren will be gone on April 17th. Yormark is doing a masterful job leading the Big 12. No question about it. Absolutely no question about it. Again, for those new to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. You'll get notified of our live shows and our episodes. We can pop up at any time. Today's been quite the busy day. We've had 2 episodes on live show. So make sure you subscribe to the show. You'll get notified. Smash that like button. It helps us with the algorithm so much on YouTube. It gets us more exposure. What Yormark is doing for the Big 12 is what you all can do for our little show if you smash that like button. Appreciate you so much. If you want to donate to the show to help us keep the lights on, hit the $ in your chat. And then we'll bring up your chat as quick as possible when I see it. So I appreciate it. There is our new merchandise store. In the description box below the video, it's cfbpatc.com. We provided a link for you. You got your official PATC Cloak and Dagger mug. Because inside that chat room, when I say the word Cloak and Dagger, there is a lot of Cloak and Dagger going on. The Cloak and Dagger is those communications between Arizona and the Big 12. The Cloak and Dagger is those communications between Colorado and the Big 12. The Cloak and Dagger is those communications between Oregon, Washington, and the Big 10. That's Cloak and Dagger. The Cloak and Dagger that's spilling out on Twitter and the message boards about an Endeavor plot, about reporters knowingly lying, carrying the water for the Big 12 and Endeavor and stuff, that's not Cloak and Dagger. That's just gibberish. That's untrue stuff. That's just people, I don't know, deflecting on what's really going on. I'm not sure what their motivation is, but it's absolutely untrue. These reporters are doing a bang-up job. Yes, they have different sources. They have different information, and they contradict each other. That's the name of the game. That's how it is. So I'm so happy that Arizona president said what he said out in public. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. Pac-12 media deal is going to be presented here soon to the Pac-12 presidents. Then they're going to hash over it. Can they get the deal done? We're going to close it up right now for a peek around the corner. We've been on for about 2 hours. We've had 2 episodes. We've hit it hard today because a lot of very interesting stuff is going on. We follow where the story is going. That's what we do here at Peek Around the Corner. And we're so happy with everyone coming in, your fantastic phone calls, your donations. We appreciate it. And before you leave, please subscribe to our channel. We're going to be covering this story and others. So hang with us. Stay with us here at Peek Around the Corner. Lots of fun. Lots of interesting stuff going on. Stuff that hasn't even made it out in the public yet. So keep your head on a swivel. Keep your head on a swivel. If you're part of the PATC community, and I hope you are, keep your head on a swivel. Lots of Cloak and Dagger going on. Until next time, and next time can be very, very, very soon from now. Until next time, from all of us at Peek Around the Corner, to all of you, please, please, you all take good care of each other. Thank you so very much.